And that question that we're still working on is what are fractions? So that's going to be our title today. What are fractions? Alright, we have done some work with fractions. Our morning work this morning was on some fractions. What can you tell me about what you know about fractions? What are they? What are fractions? If you have no idea and you're like, man, I completely forgot everything. Good thing you have a notebook sitting in front of you. Scarlett, what do you remember about fractions? They are parts of wholes. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a sentence frame that says they are ... and then we'll just finish the sentence below. They are parts of wholes. It's a really good way to think about fractions, especially if I'm thinking about food. I might eat part of a whole pizza. That would be a fraction amount. I might use part of my shampoo. That would be a fraction amount, the whole thing. Brayden, what do we know about fractions?
If you wanted to split a pizza into fourths, you could say I have a
Okay, so yep, so we have specific names. Can you give me some more? So we have, they have some special names. One of them would be fourths with that TH. Can you think of another special name that we have for fractions? Emma? Sure, those are going to be the different parts, but what do we call a fraction? Like fourths is an example of a fraction. Fifths, sure. Ethan, put your mask on. Can you think of any other names? We got fourths, we got fifths, sixths, right? Halves. Yeah, that one's kind of weird. We have a half or halves. Please raise your hand, Dominic. Dominic? Six. That'll work. Most of those end in that TH. Fourths, fifths, sixths. Half did not. Halves with a V. Halves. There's one other one that doesn't have that sound. Can you think of it? Not fourths, fifths, sixths. We already talked about halves. Liam, do you remember? We got halves. Yep. Autumn, do you remember? Sevenths. Do you hear that? Not sevenths, right? Thirds. Thirds are another weird one. We don't call them threes. We call them thirds. So we know that fractions have some special names to them. What else do we know? What else do we know about fractions? Lucy, what do you know? Fractions have equal parts. All the time they have equal parts.
A fraction, if you're trying to make a whole, you have to equal split it. That's why when you get a piece.
No, Gavin. You're thinking of even. Even and equal don't mean the same thing. Equal means that the pieces are the same size. Even means it's a division by multiples of 2 for the partner. So let's do an example of this equal parts. So I'm going to do a check mark and an X, which means I'm going to do a good example and then a bad example. Okay. I'm going to do this really weird shape, a triangle.
Oh, I like those.
How can I partition, aka divide or split up, my triangle so it is a good equal size size fraction. How do I do that? Because remember, I want both pieces to be the same size. Ethan?
To make them the same size, you'd have to go to the top where the point is and go down.
Yeah, I'm going to have to divide my triangle vertically. That way I get two equal sized pieces. That's a good example. That worked. Both those pieces are about equal. Yes.
Can we do like one more example, but like those and stuff, like go down? Okay, remember the example?
What would be a bad example? We're going to do a triangle again. But this time I want a bad example, not a fraction. Meaning the pieces are not equal. Bailey?
Like,
what is that word? Starts with an H, if that helps you. Horizontal. Like horizon. Okay.
Like the sunrise.
Yeah. Horizontal. Those pieces are not equal. They are not the same size. One of them is a fraction and one of them is not. The one with the check mark, that's fraction. The one with the X, that's just weird. Autumn?
Because it's not equal because so if one side has that top part,
Yeah, so our fractions are fair. So Autumn's thinking, okay, if I'm sharing something with friends, I need to make sure that me and my friends are getting the same amount. It's all about that fairness. Is there anything else to remember about fractions? Emma? There is a denominator and a numerator. Do you remember what they tell you? So let's go over our parts of our fraction. So I want you to draw a box, a fraction bar, and then another box. So we have a box, a fraction bar, and another box. Good morning. A box, a fraction bar, and another box. Now Emma said something is a numerator and something is a denominator. Does anyone know which one? And I gave you a little bit of a clue because I told you that line in the middle is called a fraction bar. Not a numerator and not a denominator. Arwen, do you remember? The what one?
The denominator goes at the bottom.
Yes.
Numerator goes at the top. And if you like to remember this thing that
I'm listening.
you can remember that D goes at the bottom and goes at the top.
Sure. Denominator would definitely be that bottom one, Bryce.
The denominator is the whole of your fraction, and then the numerator is the part of your fraction, which is
Love. Hey, look, we're dealing with parts and wholes again. It's like we never got away from part, whole. Crazy.
yeah, so into it that the whole never.
Correct. That's the goal.
I'm so obsessed with it.
That would be the goal. So we have our numerator, which is the digit in that top spot. And Bryce just told us that's kind of like the parts. Then we have our fraction bar, and then on bottom we have our denominator, which Bryce also just reminded us is our whole. Hey, you remember the time that I'm writing? That means you're writing. If I wrote it down, it's important enough for you to write it down. But I'll pause here to give you a little bit more time to get caught up. Okay, I think we have a pretty good starting point for what we remember about fractions. So let's move on to start thinking about what they look like. So what are some different ways that I could represent a fraction? That word represent just means like, how do I draw one? What might it look like?
Like what
If, sure. You don't need to write this title down, but if you need to turn the page, that's fine. Got it? So we have a bar model. If you remember a bar model, go ahead and draw a bar model in your notebook. You can make it for whatever fraction you would like. Bar models for fractions look a little different. Bar models for fractions look a little different. What might a bar model look like? Someone tell me, what did you draw? If you drew one already, what did you draw? Liam, what did you draw?
A circle model.
Well, hang on, we're still on bar model.
Hmm?
We're still on bar model. We'll get there.
So they look a little different.
They do. We're still on bar model though. We'll get to circle model. Give me some time. Arwen, what did you draw?
A straight line.
What shape did we draw? To make a bar model, what shape do I gotta start with? Yeah, some kind of rectangle or square shape. Okay, and then what did you do? Sure. How many parts did you make yours? 3. How did you split it? Vertically or horizontally? Vertically. Did it look something like that? Perfect. And did you shade any of them? You shaded one. This one okay? Great. That's an example that Arwen and I just did. If yours looks a little different, that's fine. If you partition yours into 6, that's fine. If you partition it into thirds horizontally, that's fine. If you color different boxes, that's fine. Cool. Alright, Liam, so we talked about bar model. What's another model that we could use? Go ahead, Liam.
Circle?
Yeah, a circle model. Go ahead and draw one of those in your notebook.
You hate those ones.
They're not my favorite.
Those
They're not my favorite because they're very hard to make the pieces equal, which we've already talked about is really important for fractions. Just like the name says, what kind of shape am I going to draw? Autumn? Circle. Typically, I only split it in halves or fourths because after that, my pieces start to get a little funky. Grace, how would you like to split it?
split it looking like a plus.
Looking like a plus. So into 4 pieces. I like that you described that as looking like a plus because if I did it like this, would that work?
No.
No, that would not work. I can see what? Well, that's not the only problem. If I split it like that, my pieces are not equal.
And one's going a bit uphill.
Well, that does, Gavin, the straightness of my line is not helping or hurting. The fact of the matter is I cannot split it that way. But splitting it in 4 to make that plus shape that Grace was talking about, that will work. Grace, how many pieces did you shade in? 2. Is it okay if I shade them like this? Yeah. Even if what I shaded is different than what Grace shaded, that value is still there. We both have 2/4. You guys are pretty good at both of these. We talked about one more model, which is that number line.
I can barely do the number line.
So, let's think about our number line. I want you to draw a number line in your notebook. We're going to make this number line go from 1, no, not 1, I changed my mind, 0 to 4. 0 to 4. What's the midway point from 0 to 4? We like to start with a midway point if we can. It makes our line look a little neater. Eliana? Nope. Friendly?
1/2.
Nope. 0 to 4. Lucy? 2.
That was
Just 2.
2/4.
Not 2/4. Nope. Just 2. These are whole numbers, guys.
And put the fractions.
What's the midway point between 0 and 2?
Oh.
Not a tricky question. Gavin?
1.
1. What's the midway point between 2 and 4? Dominic? 3.
1, 2, 3.
Alright, so I have a number line that goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Are any of those numbers that we just put fractions?
Yes.
No, those are wholes. So where are my fractions gonna go? I didn't write any fractions down. Those are whole numbers. 1 whole pizza, 2 whole pizzas, 3 whole pizzas. I don't have any fractions written down. Where are they going to live on that number line? Greta, what do you think?
The fractions are going to live in 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3.
The fractions are going to live in between my whole numbers. So, fractions live here. All of the spaces in between. All of those spaces in between my whole numbers is where parts of numbers can live. So if I have more than 0 pizzas, but less than 1 whole pizza, I might have a half a pizza. That would live right here.
And it's half of 1.
Half of 1 whole. Yep.
And then you can do the same thing with 2. Half of 2.
Half of 2. So fractions don't just live between 0 and 1. We typically only look at them between 0 and 1. 1/2, 2/3, all of that is smaller than 1 whole. Think about your cover the whole game. Right? All those pieces are smaller than 1 whole. But fractions live between all the whole numbers, not just ones that are smaller than 1 whole. Yes?
Kind of like minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years.
Yeah.
It's like there's smaller pieces in a second, smaller pieces in a minute, smaller pieces in an hour, smaller pieces in a day, smaller pieces in a week.
I love that. That's a really good, we call that an analogy. It's where you compare two things that don't really have anything to do with each other, but are kind of similar in structure.
Yeah, like for fractions, they have many things
Yep.
in between certain numbers.
Yep, so
And for living, there's many stuff in between days and between.
yeah, so I'm just going to repeat or revoice what Brian was talking about. He's making a comparison between fractions being parts of a whole as to days being parts of a week, or days being parts of a month, days being parts of a year. We have all these parts that then can build to make up one whole thing. I love it. I love it. All right, so we're going to spend a tiny bit of time, not a very long time today, playing Cover the Hole. This will probably be our last time for a little while playing Cover the Hole because I have a new game that we're going to start.
Oh, right.
But I want you to think about these questions as you play today.
Can I plug in the knuckle play?
Hang on. So the questions that I want you thinking about as you play is there a strategy to winning?
Yes.
Think about what it is. What would be considered a good roll? What would be considered a bad roll? So I want you to think about those questions as we play today, and we're going to answer them when we finish. You may go ahead and put away your math notebook and get out your fraction kit. Let's talk about our game that we just played. Is there a strategy to winning? Because we all want to win. Is there a strategy to winning, Gavin?
Yes. For the dice to be guy, whoever rolled first, would win the round.
Okay, so maybe trying to get to be the first person to roll.
Because it kept working, and me and Aliana, we did 4 rounds, and we both won 2 rounds.
Very nice. Ethan, is there a strategy to winning?
A strategy to winning is try to only get big numbers, and also sometimes get small numbers. Like if you got a 1/2 and 2 1/4, that would be good because 2 1/4 equal up to 1 big 1/2.
Yeah, so Ethan realized, hey, I might want a big fraction, especially when I'm starting out. So that might be what we consider a good roll. What would be a good roll? What fraction? Especially for the first roll, what would be a good one? Emma? Why would 1/2 be a good first roll? It is a big fraction, but it has the smallest digit. Did you see that? Like 1/8 has an 8 in it. It has a 1 and a 2. Why is that one so much bigger? 1/8 has the number 8 in it. But it's so tiny in comparison to 1/2. Why? Really, why?
Because if you had it to share a pizza with 8 people, pieces would be smaller if you had to share it with 2 people.
Yeah, so a half with that smaller denominator is always going to be bigger sized pieces because you're having to share it between less people. What would be a bad roll in the first round? Azalea?
Getting a small number.
Which would be like what? What would be an example?
1/8.
1/8 would be a bad roll. 1/8 might be a bad roll. Because it's really, really small. Yeah. Braden?
If you do it like we don't have a 1/12, 1/12 would be
Sure, we can go even smaller. We do have that fraction 1/12 on our dice. We don't have those pieces, but you can imagine 1/12 would be even smaller than 1/8.
It would be like, which means if you cut a pizza into 12 pieces, that would have to be really small.
You would be getting really tiny pieces then. Yep. Alright, so this version of this game does not have a ton of strategy. It's a little more luck. Right? It's whatever you roll and if that works out. It's a lot of luck. We're going to play a different version of this game, not today, but there is more strategy involved because you're going to be allowed to start changing your pieces. So this game, a little bit more luck. Our next game that we play, though, is going to require you to think and going to require you to have some strategy in order to win. Okay?